Denbigh is an ancient market town situated on the west side of the Vale of Clwyd, which grew up around a castle built to hold the district after Edward I had overcome the Welsh in 1282. Although this castle formed one of the links in the chain of Edward's fortresses crossing North Wales, it was in actual fact built by Henry de Lacy, Earl of Lincoln, after he had been granted the lordship of Denbigh as a reward for supporting the king. Work on this impressive castle began in 1282, and although substantially completed by 1311 when de Lacy died, it wasn't actually finished until 11 years later. Today, the castle, perched on its splendid hilltop site, dominates the town just as it has done for over 700 years. Within the castle grounds, the museum and shop provide an insight into the castle's history. Here you find exhibits illustrating life in the 13th century. The steepness of the hill, scarcity of water and damage to the wooden houses ravaged by fire during the Wars of the Roses attributed to the decline of the old town. The increasing development of Denbigh as a market town meant that, by the early 1600s, it was considered to be one of the most important towns in Wales. Plans from the 17th century show how the roads began to radiate out from the High Street. Love Lane curved around the Castle Hill, while Pentland Street headed westwards, and Lower Street, now Vale Street, continued eastwards. Much of the ancient town walls have survived to this day, and this, the Burgess Gate, is in a particularly good state of preservation. This sole remaining gate of the Edwardian town leads to Tower Hill. Here you find terraced cottages huddled together within the security of the old town walls. St. Hilary's Tower is all that remains of what was once the Garrison church. Denbigh's first grammar school used to be held in the crypt beneath this church, but, sadly, no evidence remains of the main body of the church, which was demolished in 1924. Denbigh's most famous son, the explorer Sir Henry Morton Stanley, was christened John Rowlands here in 1841. He was born on the 28th of January that year, and for the first few years of his life was brought up by his grandfather. On the death of his grandfather, he was taken to the workhouse in St. Asaph, now the H.M. Stanley Hospital. John eventually moved to New Orleans, where he adopted the name of his kind employer, Henry Morton Stanley. During the American Civil War, he had many great adventures, fighting on both sides. In 1869, he was employed as a reporter for the New York Herald to search for David Livingstone in Africa. When he eventually found the lost explorer, he uttered the words which made him famous. "Dr. Livingstone, I presume." In 1579, Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, ordered work on this church to be commenced. His plans for this church to become a cathedral never reached fruition. It is said that a war in Ireland drained the Earl's resources, and as a result, he didn't have sufficient funds to complete the work. Bull Lane leads steeply down the hill to meet Hall Square. At the junction of this lane and the square, a magnificent house was erected in 1666. That house is today the Bull Hotel. Opposite the Bull Hotel, the County Hall, from which the square derives its name, was built in the late 1500s. It once served as a court of law, where the borough sessions, quarter sessions, and county assizes were held. It has also served as the council chamber, and even gave cover to market stallholders for many years. Today, whilst retaining much of its external period character, you will find the interior has been modernized, and now serves as the town's library, art gallery, and museum. This beautiful ceramic mural tells the tale of the history and development of Denbigh. Flowers and wildlife found in the locality are interwoven with designs recording activities and characters of the area. This quaint medieval lane is known as Back Row, and throughout its history has always been bordered by inns. Some street names recall the fact that there were once many wells here supplying water to the public and industry. Denbigh is steeped in history, and every street, road and lane has its own tale to tell. In the 14th century, Lenten Pool was described as a pool well stocked with fish to be eaten by the castle garrison during Lent. Lenten Pool today differs from the Lenten Pool seen earlier this century. The High Cross, now standing in the centre of the roundabout, was previously located in Crown Square, but it was moved in 1923 to make way for the Angel War Memorial. The old High Cross, which preceded the High Cross, is now sited here at the head of Vale Street, next to the stocks, which create character even though they did not originate in Denbigh. Vale Street, once described as the finest approach to any town, was the professional and residential area of the town. Bordered by town houses, which may have lost some of their earlier elegance, Vale Street does still create an impressive gateway to Denbigh. Salisbury Place, now sadly demolished, was situated toward the lower end of Vale Street, and was the home of Dr. Evan Pierce, who was born in 1808. Dr. Pierce won the respect of local people for his untiring work during a cholera epidemic, and in his memory this marble statue was erected in 1876 in a small garden opposite what was once his home. Contrary to popular belief, there never has been a post office in this lane. The name is a corruption of Posting House Lane. The severe gradient at the top of Vale Street meant horses could not climb all the way to the High Street, and it was necessary for horses drawing coaches to be changed halfway up the hill, at the posting house located at the rear of the Hawk and Buckle Inn. Another famous feature of Denbigh was also located in the yard of the Hawk and Buckle. Denbigh Cockpit was probably erected in the mid-1600s, but it was the mid-1960s when it was dismantled and re-erected in St Fagan's Folk Museum in Cardiff. The Friary, or Abbey as it is known locally, played an important role in the life of Denbigh in the Middle Ages. This street was once known as Beggars' Lane, because it was here that friars would beg for alms to distribute to the poor. The friary ceased to exist following the dissolution of the monasteries in 1538, and after that it was put to a variety of uses. It served as a wool store for a number of years, and then as a brewery until 1898, when a fire destroyed most of the building, leaving only the bare shell you see today. Denbigh has always been a market town located in an agricultural area, and for countless years farmers came here to buy and sell livestock at weekly auctions. Regrettably, this colourful and lively spectacle no longer forms a part of the town's way of life. Pentland Street, leading to the pretty village after which it is named, is one of Denbigh's oldest streets. Once the main working area of the town, this street did for many years have a reputation for being a somewhat rough and undesirable quarter. A number of the older properties have been given a fresh lease of life. These, together with modern housing developments, have enabled the area to acquire an air of peace and respectability. St. Mary's Church is fairly modern compared to many other buildings here. Built of local limestone and stone quarried from Minera, this church has served the parish since 1873. Here in Chapel Street, the printing works, forever associated with the publisher and preacher Thomas G., are still operating today. Thomas G., born in 1815, used to ride for miles on his horse, Degum, to preach. He was not only a leading newspaper publisher, but also a member of the Borough Council for over 50 years, and a founder of Love Lane School. Whilst Denbigh is, of course, a centre of great historical importance, the present town has much to offer visitors and residents alike. Affording facilities for all ages, this leisure complex is, however, a particular haven for the young. Here, boundless energy can be safely released and a lot of fun be had. Who knows? Perhaps these energetic youngsters may be sporting superstars of the future. There is a wide choice of activities to participate in all the year round.